The time is now 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and welcome to the second episode of Effluvium, a live stream on YouTube. I thought what would be a good idea to start off each of these is to do some first impressions. I have a surplus of samples, and I think that first impressions are fun, especially if you go into them without any particular bias. So I have a cursory understanding of each of these. But I do not have a notes breakdown in front of me, at least not yet. And I don't have any, I don't have a cheat sheet. And there are three fragrances that you may or may not be familiar with. Two of these I received while visiting Montreal. I was given these samples by a shop assistant at Etiquette, which is a fragrance and personal care shop in Montreal. And the third one is one that was genuinely gifted to me by Lucky Scent. I'm sure many of us have hundreds of those sitting around if you have purchased a number of times from Lucky Scent. The three that I'd like to do first impressions on as we start this evening are Maison Crivelli Osmant Kodoshan. I've been interested in osmanthus fragrances lately. I've been finding that trying to find that elusive osmanthus which makes my heart skip a beat. I think I've already actually found it. I mentioned it last week with Chemo Month by Diptyque. But there's still a few more osmanthus fragrances that I would like to sample. Hi. Where is the super chat button? I have not started with super chats, at least not yet. But I am giddy to know that if somebody it wants to give me a super chat, that would be very nice. Maybe in the future, but this is all for the love of it. But hey, why not? Hello to Melissa and to Prof. Melvin, to Effectophiles, and to Pep, aka the Sentinel. Hello. Thank you very much, Maddie S54, and thank you, Supply and Demand. And welcome, Basic Malarco and Anim Fragrance. Okay. So the second one that I'm going to do first impression on is Ormond Jane Taif, as in the Taif Rose. And the third one that I'll be doing is Marc-Antoine Barrois Ganymede. And the reason for this is this fragrance seems to come up in conversation and on Instagram posts and on YouTube and every which way I look as something that people really appreciate. And I didn't ask for this sample, but Lucky Scent seemed to have a few of these sitting around and they threw it in the pouch with the other ones that I requested. So that will be the third one. We will be partying soon, I can assure you of that. Switch on super chat button, please. Where do I find the super chat button? Somebody's going to have to tell me how to set up super chat. I'm not sure if I can do that in real time, though. I think I have to do that in advance through StreamYard and have everything set up to receive super chats. What you wearing tonight? So, folks, let me know what your scent of the evening is. My scent of the evening will probably be one of the fragrances that I'll be discussing tonight when we get into autumn scents. And thank you, Joe. You have to go into settings on YouTube. And I think that might be a little bit too much for me to deal with at the moment while we're live. But I'll get it set up in time for next week because it seems like people want to give me money. And how can I say no to that? Just drop your cash or PayPal. Well, I'm not sure if that's a good idea. But hey, if somebody wants to follow me on Instagram, JJ Colborn, same exact name as this, and send me a DM, then we can discuss matters. And maybe through that, I can send you a generous helping of samples. And yes, I don't know that Super Chat is available until you are monetized. Maybe, though. I have very little knowledge on how to set up Super Chats. Super Chats are for monetized channels. Yes, so it seems like that may be the case. But Joe says here, my videos, then dashboard will allow you to access YouTube Studio and go into the settings there. So maybe I'll tool around with that later. But without further ado, folks, I want to get started with doing these first impressions. And then following that, we're going to bring in one of my regular panelists. His name is Ryan, Perfume Bonfire. He is on Instagram and YouTube. And then Joshua Rodriguez. He's on Instagram as _Escential. That is ESCENTIALNOTES_. All right, so let's see. Maison Crivelli, Osmanth Kodoshan. Kodoshan, that sounds very Japanese. Well, Osmanthus, the tree, is native to Japan. Oh, do you hear that? Okay. So I'm using a little dabber here. One of the tips is if you have no other choice but to use a dabber, use this. Don't use that. Don't just splash it like that. But if you use the dabber and you apply it furiously, it is almost as if you're using an atomizer. Almost. Not quite, but almost. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So there is another osmanthus-oriented fragrance that I am already familiar with, Osmanth Yunnan. Once again, Yunnan province, Japan, from Hermescence, the Hermescence line. And I'm immediately reminded of that here. And there's definitely the lactonic qualities that can come from having sort of an apricot-like accord. So osmanthus blossoms don't smell exactly like apricot, but they do have this facet that's similar to it. And from having smelled the blossoms only once, there is some citric qualities to it as well. And, you know, more of those sort of ineffable floral elements, obviously, since it's a tree blossom. And so what I don't notice here so far in the first impression would be sort of those leathery nuances, which I think really only come from using a high proportion of Osmanthus absolute. The flowers themselves don't really have that in their headspace, but I'd say this is very pretty, diaphanous maybe. I'm not expecting this one to be a heavy hitter, even as I just applied it on my skin. It's gossamer. It's like there's a translucency to it. Oh God, did I just do that? Oh no. Please don't compare me to anyone else who's on YouTube. So far, I like it. It's very translucent, though. It feels sort of like inhaling the blossoms themselves, which is impressive. So far, that is a like. So that's on right hand in this little portion of the hand. Okay. Next one is Ormonjane Taif, as in the Taif rose, or I think a Taif rose is like a cabbage. They also call it cabbage rose, if I'm not mistaken. It is a type of rose. It is not like Damascus rose, like Bulgarian rose, or Rose de Mai. It's a different type of rose. I think it grows in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. Or anywhere that it can be grown. So the only Ormonjane fragrance that I have is Tolu. which I find quite enjoyable. And I'm not an Ormond Jane fanboy. I have not been compelled to buy any other full bottle, but that could change. Yeah, yes, I would agree with that. It sounds a little bit more poetic than Cabbage Rose. Um, ooh, this is very soft, velvety, petal-like. Um, I would almost say it's somewhat drier than a typical rose. It's almost like the kind of rose that you experience after you've pressed it and it's sort of dehydrated. And there's some green elements. It's soft, somewhat spicy, and somewhat woody. I think this one I'm more interested in actually than the Osmant Kodasham. I think this one I want to get to know a little bit better so far. Remember, this is just first impressions. I can't make any conclusion about these fragrances just by having them applied to my skin and experiencing the top notes for the first few seconds or first couple of minutes. But it's an interesting exercise. Okay. And then the third one is the popular Marc-Antoine Berrois Ganymede. And I'm going to put this on my right wrist. And Margie says, Ormond Jane has a very specific DNA. They perfume like crazy. I do like them. My favorites are Osmanthus and Ormond. Speaking of Osmanthus, I should try their Osmanthus. I think they actually had two. There's Osmanthus and QI. And I should get samples of them. All right, so moving on with Ganymede. I don't even remember what the notes pyramid is. I don't even remember what kind of fragrance, what family of fragrance this belongs to. So I'm just going into this blindly. All right, time for some Ganymede. Okay, there is some leather going on here, like leather bases, leather components, at least to my nose, it seems like it. Very vinyl-y kind of leather. I think that this probably has like a whole lot of like Sweeterol and Safraline and there's almost a sort of like a petrol vibe to it. Yeah. No. It's not my style. It's just not my thing. I just, if I were to gravitate towards that, which I don't think I would anyways, I think more in terms of like Tuscan leather from Tom Ford, even though that's not my favorite type of leather. Suede and metallics. Yeah, I am kind of getting that it's very metallic. It's yeah. Well, thank you, sir. That I am very flattered coming from somebody with great sartorial taste, much like yourself. Thank you. Hey, I'm inclined to agree. We really should take whatever we see as a notes pyramid with a grain of salt, especially when there's inconsistencies with note pyramids. And I'll tell you time and again, if you go to something like base notes or Fragrantica, there will either be notes that have been added accidentally or misidentified, or there are notes that are missing. And always remember, you may smell notes that are there but are not listed on the notes pyramid. I experience that all the time. Or it claims to have a note, and for the life of me, I can't detect it at all. So it's just one guide out of many different guides in experiencing fragrance, and it should never be treated as gospel. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think that, yeah, now that it's drying down, I'm tolerating it a little bit more. I do sense that kind of like a leather car interior kind of vibe. It's a bit linear so far, but then again, I just put it on my skin about a minute or two ago. All right. So those are the three. So Eugene asked me, do you think it can grow on you? Which one are you referring to? Are you referring to the Ganymede or the other two, the Taif or the Osmanth Kodoshan? Do I get an apple note? Interesting. Is that what we're supposed to be experiencing in Ganymede? Well, there is the power of suggestion, so let's check this out. I suppose so, like apple skin. Certainly not a sweet apple. Ganymede is nice, but Safran Colonisé is a better choice for that profile, in my opinion. We'll take note. Santa Maria Novella Nostalgia is the most petrolly leather ever, and I absolutely adore Nostalgia. That is the most arresting top note I've ever smelled in a fragrance. It almost smells criminal, like you shouldn't be smelling it, but it's just so divine. But it lasts only about 5 to 10 minutes, but it's so worth it to reapply. The dry down is wonderful, though. It's excellent. I recently did a review on that. Oh, that's right. You're in Florida. Yeah. We'll see how that pans out. Keep us posted. Okay. All right. So for this evening, we are, wow, there's a lot of comments. Sorry if I'm not keeping up here. I'm a little behind. Okay, so we're up to date here. All right. Looks like I have to get Nostalgia. At least sample it. Big proponent of sampling. Excellent place to sample Santa Maria Novella is AD's Perfumery on their website. I don't know 100%, you should check their website, but you can get samples of Santa Maria Novella. And we know how notoriously difficult they can be to get. So check out the website, see if you can purchase them, or if you have something on your list, purchase it from AD's and then ask for a bunch of samples, Santa Maria Novella samples. 65, holy crap. Well, thank you so much, folks, for joining. All right, so for this evening, we're going to be talking about autumn. The autumnal equinox has just recently passed us this week. And what I decided to do is discuss each season as it begins, fragrances that we turn to or fragrances that we associate with that particular season. All right. So I want to ask some folks, what are some of the notes that you most associate with autumn? What are the ones that you like to wear during this time of year? And does that change as the season progresses and moves closer into winter? It is one of my favorite seasons. Actually, my favorite seasons are the transitional seasons of spring and autumn. They're the temperatures that I can most tolerate here in New England. And I find them to be the most colorful and exciting seasons. Not that the other two are bad, but the weather can be a little difficult in winter and summer. So vanilla. Okay. Yep. Vanilla. Absolutely. Vanilla has that warmth. It has that comforting, but also alluring feel to it, which I think is really associated with autumn flavors as well as scents. More woods, deeper scents. Yes, I do gravitate more to woody fragrances for sure. There was one that I actually reviewed today and have posted it to my Instagram, Fragrantica and Basements. I am still using Fragrantica. We won't get into that discussion, but it's force of habit. But Basements is great. So I sampled I wore, and I reviewed Feminine de Bois, the Shiseido version. You can read that review on my Instagram or one of those other sites. And that is the epitome of warm and comforting and enveloping woods with plum and carnation and all kinds of good stuff. Yes, Nora Peace. Oh, I want to make sure I'm choosing the right one. Nora Peace is kind of autumn. Yeah, I have that right back there. I don't have it immediately with me, but that is a recent acquisition, and that is one of my favorites from Frederick Malle, and it is sorely overlooked in comparison to some of the heavy hitters like Portrait of a Lady and Musk Ravager. Honey. I think I should do a honey week coming up. I love honey. There is actually one honey fragrance. It's honey with immortelle and woods, and it's called Bois Lumière by Anatole Breton. And to me, it is just larger than life honey and beeswax. It's my favorite from the line. I like that even more than Grimoire, which I think is nice, but it reminds me too much of some other fragrances that I already enjoy. Incense, yes, especially later autumn and into winter. I really move forward with incense fragrances, resinous fragrances, things with a lot of molybdenum and labdanum, and just anything that just reminds you of a bit of smokiness and incense. Musk, tobacco for sure, agarwood, tonka, spices, bergamot. Bergamot is universal. We already know, a lot of us, that bergamot is indispensable for fragrance, even if it doesn't make a loud appearance. It's almost always there in the top notes. But when it really shines, especially in amber, it's excellent. A lot of the greatest amber accords have bergamot in the top. And it's funny that you should mention that, Alex, because I do have one of them. Luton's has a lot of autumn and winter friendly fragrances. I have Baptême de Feu, which is French for baptism by fire. Is anybody familiar with this one? It's really a unique one. There is a lot of things going on here, but they somehow manage to work. There's so many great ones for this time of year. This, Jeu de Peau, Arabi, Amble Salcam, Filanagi. Filanagi actually more so in the winter. I like to reach for that. What is my take on Dior Bois d'Argent? So here is a confession. I have never really explored the Privé line or the Privé collection of Dior. It just never got around to it. And then I learned that there were some changes, some discontinuations, some reformulations, and it just got too confusing. And I'm like, fuck it. So if somebody wants to send me a sample of Bois d'Argent, I'd be happy to give my feedback on it. That's one of them that's been recommended to me, Mitza, Gris Montagne, Eau Noire. But I just recently learned from Pep, who is watching tonight, that there are some significant changes to Eau Noire with the reintroduction to it. Yes, Baptême de Feu is an acquired taste. There's some elements that maybe to some noses seem a little burnt, and I like it, but I could see where some people are a little put off. Like, it's almost like there's gunpowder, and I think that's actually noted in it, if I'm not mistaken. There is this flinty quality going on that's mingling with the ginger and the spices. And it's intriguing. I love it, but it was never really a big seller for them. So that's why it's pretty easy to get on a discount. But I can't say enough about it. I think it's great. Have I tried Bergamasque? That's a pretty impactful fragrance. It's oily almost. It's really oily and viscous to my nose. It's like a bergamot if bergamot it wasn't coming from a citrus fruit, but rather from like a wood or a tree. It's a challenging one. I find it intriguing though. That whole line is is really dense. And hard for me to warm up to, but I do nonetheless find them to be really intriguing. Fleeting, okay. Which isn't always a concern for me, but certainly if I were to spend a significant amount of money, that fleeting would have to be a rapturous experience, or else I would feel cheated. And I do have fragrances that are fleeting but rapturous, and I feel like I haven't wasted my money. It's just like a transportive experience, even if it's for just a few hours. But if it's running more than $300, that I take issue with that, unless it's just mind blowing for those first few hours, for those only hours. Buy me coffee, or coffee peeps can send you a little money, well deserved. Oh, well, thank you. Without you being monetized. I will look into that. I'll make a little note to myself. I'll draw a little coffee cup, a little mnemonic device there. Nice little warm cup of coffee. And that will remind me to look up the buy me coffee option. All right. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you so much for the recommendation. Oh, brilliant. That is actually one of my favorite Serge Lutens, La Mire, which to me, and this is going to be blasphemous to some people, it takes that contrast between the allopathic aldehydes and the dry down of Chanel No. 5 and distills it into something that I find far more compelling. And I love Mire. I'm sorry, I love Mire. I love myrrh. I love, you know, if it comes from an absolute or even the essential oil with those sort of bitter tonic qualities to the top notes of the essential oil. And you have all of that in La Mire. It's outstanding. Actually, another fragrance that I have that has a significant amount of myrrh in it. I just keep on wanting to say myrrh. Oriental Velour. So with this line, I enjoyed all of them, but there were really only three that captured me, or captured my heart. It was this Musc de Sable and Ambre Suprême, and the Oriental Velour, or Velour d'Orient, as it's been retitled, has a glorious amount of myrrh in the dry down, and it has it's very coniferous, and I'm a sucker for coniferous accords, and anything that reminds me of being in a pine forest puts me in my happy place. That's actually a good question, and I've always wondered about that one, Lily. Bossus. It is one that is not really heavily discussed, and the few reviews that I read are lukewarm, but all the more reason for me to want to try it, because somehow, for some reason, every time that I find it is something that is barely paid attention to, or critically panned, or people are indifferent, I somehow end up falling in love. So that could very well be another one. Amble and wheat for watching the leaves change in New England. That's one I had. So once again, never tried it. If somebody wants to be a deer and send me a little sample pack, I would gladly repay in return in whatever capacity, because that is territory, fertile territory for me that I have not yet explored. And I know that may come as a shock to people, but it's just impossible for me to cover all territories. And we have Secret de Parfum Opium is a wonderful myrrh note. Oh, note, duly noted. Secret de Parfum Opium. Okay, I'll check that out. So as a matter of fact, John Beeble is a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for almost 20 years. So I've known him long before he began writing about perfume and making perfume. So I come into that with a bit of a bias, but be that as it may, I am impressed with a number of his creations. And they are really out of the realm of traditional perfumery, but he approaches things with such with such an imagination. There are definitely a few that are favorites of mine. I think Horla is excellent. Smolder Rose, Eider Antler, Vapor Cindro. He has some excellent fragrances. he deserves the acclaim and attention. Absolutely. So without further ado, or did I already say that? I think that's my new phrase, without further ado. I think what we will be doing is we'll be moving forward and bringing in first a member of my regular panel. This is only my second episode. We will be building more of a regular panel as things move forward. And then soon thereafter, we'll be bringing in our guest, Joshua. So, hello.
Hello.
So this feels a lot more comfortable to me than the first one. I think I'm navigating a lot better here on StreamYard. So that's pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Getting used to YouTube. YouTube feels a lot less intimate for live streams than Instagram. I've said that to you before. So it's always a different experience, much bigger, more active audience. And
yeah, it almost feels like live closed circuit television, not national television. It feels a little bit more formal, and you got to be on top of things. Kind of feels that way.
Public access for sure.
Public access. Maybe at this point I'm getting more viewers than public access stations.
Probably.
And we have 48, which is excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This evening, our discussion is autumn and the fragrances that we turn to during this season. Ryan, tell me, what kinds of fragrances do you find yourself moving towards as the temperatures cool and the leaves start to turn here in New England?
For me, it's very much about, I guess, I mean, like smoke and earthy notes, which really for me translates to like drier spices, smoky incenses, true smoke notes, and then like the kind of like earthy, leathery tones that you get with tobacco or proper leather notes, less of the Tom Ford variety, but more of like the more raw, earthy leathers. For me, that's very much how it feels. Like I was looking at, as I was thinking about what fall scents I was going to talk about, and it seems like it's been a year where many of my purchases have leaned towards that like smoky leather space. I seem to have acquired a lot of smoky leathers. So I think that's pretty much where I'm at, but I love spices too. So vanillas with a lot of carnation or clove or things like that also feel very autumnal to me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm finding myself this time every year wanting to have things that sort of warm the chill a little bit, and definitely leathers that have more of that birch tar arcade element, a little smoky, maybe the classic isobutyl quinoline IBQ kinds of leathers as well. Vetivers like the warmer, the grassier, the nuttier, the chewier, the better as it gets cooler, and also spice, lots of spice. I mean, I'm a sucker for clove. I know that I was actually in a coffee shop in my neighborhood earlier today, and we were discussing flavors because I'm just as fascinated with flavors as they're adjacent to scent. And one of the scents and flavors that I think needs sort of a renaissance is clove. But unfortunately, it's becoming so restricted. Eugenol is becoming so heartbreakingly restricted. So that might prove to be a problem. But when I was a kid, I would love clove candy. Like there were these little like spheres, kind of striped spheres, and they would be clove flavored. And then I don't know if anybody's familiar with Neko Wafers, but Neko Wafers, which used to be produced here in New England until the Neko brand was bought, and now it's somewhere in some other part of the country or world. One of the flavors, and it's a purplish colored disc, is clove. And all of the kids would say, blah. And I would say, give them all to me. I love the flavor of clove. I even enjoyed when I would taste it at the dentist because I'm freaking weird and I enjoy going to the dentist, I know. Don't think the wrong way of me. But clove is just such another comforting kind of spice to me. I love when it makes appearances in fragrance. Nutmeg, Definitely, nutmeg, cinnamon, naturally. So one of them that actually two of them that I'm thinking of, and they're earlier releases from Diptyque. We have actually the first release from the Diptyque. This fragrance was released in 1968. Diptyque has a very long history. They, for most of their history, were better known for their candle making, and that's how they started. But it was very early on that they started exploring personal fragrance, and this one is all of those things, and turned up to 11. But I love it. It is one of the most clovey fragrances. Love it. And then we also have one. We fast forward 18 years to this one, which is Olent. And Olent is cinnamon via Apoponax. I love the way that the cinnamon and the other spices seamlessly dry down into this great Apoponax base. And I'd love to try an older bottle of this, but this bottle is fantastic. And there's a certain powdery quality, so for those who don't enjoy powder, forget about it. It does dry down rather powdery, but I love powder. I love it. I don't know what that says about me, but I love powder. So those two are the two that I think of like right away. Like, this is what I need to wear, especially when it's late October. It's getting chillier. It's going to be Thanksgiving soon. So what are some of the ones that you have in mind? What are the spicy ones that you like?
The spicy ones. Well, I mean, one that I go to when I think of spicy for me is Guerlain Louis, which just has that very significant carnation.
Yeah.
Clovey carnation to the point of really feeling very clovey to me.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see. It's probably too far away, but I actually have that sitting right over there with my other Guerlains. Yeah, that one's great.
It's
really
go ahead. Good.
Yeah.
It's really good, really underrated. But yeah, have you worn it yet? Because it's like when fall comes around, I like to spray that on in the morning and have it with coffee. Like, it's just like a very relaxed scent for me.
Yeah. I think that once the temperatures start to hit the low 60s or the 50s, that's when I'm going to start wearing it. And I do think that it's true that fragrances perform differently depending upon the weather. That's the case for me. I'm all about suggesting what fragrances work best in certain seasons, although I don't think that there's some sort of dogma behind it. You can wear fragrances whenever the hell you want. I'm not going to tell you it's a bad idea. Sorry about that. A lot of motorcyclists in my neighborhood. I'm not sure if that picked up on the microphone. But yeah, I definitely think that there are certain fragrances that will warm on the skin differently this time of year. And that's one that just is so stirring on the skin. It's not a heavy hitter. It's not a loud fragrance, but the way that it just hovers over the skin is wonderful. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, isn't that packaged and given a different name, a name that Uyet, it refers to the carnation, and now it costs much, much more than it did before?
It does cost a lot more than it did. And again, it was discounted pretty steeply. So it always was at like a pretty high retail price. Right. It's just you were able to get it. I think at the lowest I saw it was like $60, and now you're creeping way up, I think, past 300 for it, which I would not recommend.
No.
I mean, like, there are ways to get pretty nice spiced vanillas in the same space.
Right.
Or however you say that, which is often compared to Musc Ravageur, is a very good, like, budget option in that space that that I feel like would be a better alternative now that prices on these have gone up. But I would actually I think I won this bottle in a giveaway on Instagram.
Oh, so really?
I didn't even buy it.
You didn't even need to spend a cent on it. Oh, wow. Yeah, I did get mine on a discount. I got mine on FragranceNet, and of course that is long sold out on FragranceNet. because obvious reasons. Like, nobody's going to want to buy the newer version of it, which could very well not even smell the same. Who knows what's going on at the hands of Guerlain at this point. As one of my most beloved houses, it's I wouldn't say it's most beloved as of how it is today in 2022. I'm not entirely impressed with the goings about with that particular house. So, but
No,
yeah,
but if we're staying on the topic, I think one of my favorite autumnal scents from the house is Heritage, which
yeah,
which feels to me to come alive in this like early autumn space in particular because of all the wonderful spices in the opening, especially in the current formulation. It has a very nice kind of bright, effusive opening. The dry down on the current is less nice than the dry down on the vintage, I would agree, just because of the lack of the sandalwood. But the opening on the current eau de toilette in particular is beautifully aromatic, and it always makes me instantly think of fall when
yeah.
I smell it.
Yeah, that's a great one as well. I'm actually reserving that one for Thursday evening because I'll be having a discussion on 90s favorites. So, did not want to be redundant, but it's an excellent selection for this time of year. I 100% agree. Let's see. Okay. I'm just wondering why that didn't update. Okay. Sorry, I'm distracted. Mr. Distracted here. So, do you find that there are certain fragrances that you move away from this time of year, ones that you don't think really translate as well as the cooler weather approaches?
I mostly put away my eau de colognes at this point in the year. So I've
Yeah.
already moved, like I have a limited cabinet space, so I've moved my eau de colognes like into the drawers and now have like I still have some lighter stuff because the temperatures are still kind of like going up and down. But I eau de colognes I love in spring and summer, but somehow by the time I've reached the end of summer, I'm ready to put the zesty citrus stuff away and move on to all those delicious darker notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
think a lot of people would agree with that and do the same for sure.
Probably, and
Yeah.
then maybe I don't know, like trying to think beyond eau de colognes. Like my summer fragrances, I don't wear a lot of like major freshies in the popular sense. Like I wear a lot of more classically eau de cologne
Yeah.
stuff. So I mean, I guess at this point, I also tend to put aside my fougères, which is weird because I think fougères do well in fall and can wear very nicely. But I tend to reserve my fougères for springtime and like late winter, that like sort of like January, February period when I
Right.
wear them. So
It's funny that you mentioned that because I decided to do a fougere week next week, and I think I chose specifically fougères which could work this time of year. So Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be doing a week of fougères, but I find that the ones that I've chosen tend to be the more vanillic and spicy and clovey fougères. They work better this time of year. So I was going to mention, yeah, some fougères work. Earlier autumn, more so. And then as you go further into when the weather gets cooler, it's time to say bye-bye to them until the springtime. Green scents. I don't really feel like being green this time of year. That really starts to happen late winter when I really am getting excited for like greenness to happen. Like by the time February comes around, I really want to smell like green, verdant notes and galbanum and grassy notes and hyacinth and everything. So
you and I are completely the same there. That's when I go full green. I mean, I would say so. Like if I'm thinking about a few fougères that I would wear, I think they tend to be like fougère chypre hybrids that I tend to bring out at this point, like something like Aramis Tuscany, or which has like a dryness to it that and very herbal quality that feels kind of like harvesty that I can get behind. Or I don't know what genre Gianfranco Ferre for man, I mean, actually falls in, because it's like leathery tobacco darkness with some like fougere elements, but that is a gorgeous autumn scent with that darkness. Great oak moss bomb that So that one would be one I would bring out. But I actually have a fougere here that I brought out just because it was one of the more recent bottles I got in a swap, and I've enjoyed it. And it is technically a fougere, but it's very different. I've talked about this on Instagram, which is DS and Durga's Burning Barbershop.
Oh yeah, that one is. I get a kick out of that one. I do want to give you some props though. You made it clear that the Gianfranco Fear is for man, singular, not for men. For man. There was actually a for men as well. It was composed by Pierre Bourdon, released in the 2000s, and it's sort of this tepid iris kind of scent. Like it was like sort of like an also ran kind of like, oh, we have the Diorum, here's our version of it. But I digress. Let's talk about Burning.
No, I had for men before I had for man, and for a while there I was confused about which was which, and then night and day. So from man, stellar. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And oak moss this time of year, the mossier fougères and mossier fragrances in general were splendid.
Yes. This is oak moss season. This is go
for sure.
If you're an oak moss lover, this is the time. But Burning Barbershop, so DS and Durga, they have a lot of fragrances. You can get mixed opinions as a house. I tend to like them, but I agree that retail is high for what they offer. But I think I think they have some conceptually interesting stuff mixed in, and Burning Barbershop is one of them, because it's just kind of novel to front load a very like classic barbershop lavender scent with so much smoke. I've never seen that done anywhere before. So I almost I have to be very careful when applying this because the smoke is so strong.
Yeah.
It chokes me out even if I apply just enough. So it's kind of quite a journey from clouds of smoke in your face to what is actually a fairly pleasant barbershop dry down.
It's kind of like an under the shirt number. It's kind of like I wouldn't even wear that up here. It would be a discreet wear because it's so that pungent smoke is almost pungent. Yeah. But it's the only one out of DS and Durga besides a project that they did for Rodin called BIS, BIS, which I will be featuring that during my Ambergris week. I have all these theme weeks coming up. That one is really spectacular. But I'm with you. DS and Durga is really hit or miss, especially for the price. They seem to visit a lot of themes, but they don't really add much to them. But that's an exception for sure, because I don't think we've ever encountered such a smoldering, smoky fougere as that. It's really bizarre. I love it. Olfactophiles. Funny that you mentioned Fougère d'Argent. Actually, next week for my Fougère week, I'll be featuring another from that sadly discontinued series of Tom Ford's Fougère Platine next week. So I think, Ryan, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our guest, Ryan. And he's going to share in the discussion. And here he is. Hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up?
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to ask you, are you the type of person who sort of categorizes your fragrances according to season? Do you find yourself doing that?
Yeah. I actually gravitate to fall fragrances more than most seasons, I guess you would say. It's probably my favorite time of the year. So, definitely. I feel like you guys hit on some things. I love earthy notes. I think Ryan, you had said that you kind of like that earthiness in fall fragrances, and that also, I find that to be true. I like boozy. I find boozy. I lived in Montana. I just moved away from Montana, but in Montana, it gets cold much quicker, and you start drinking more alcohol, earlier. I don't drink a ton, but I find myself in the fall having more stouts, whiskey, that type of stuff. So I think that kind of, for whatever reason, those years in Montana have triggered me to think of that in fall. I think baked goods.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And then coffee. I don't know. Maybe it's just coffee, in the mornings, just kind of taking it easy. So I find coffee fragrances I'm attracted to too in the fall.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting about coffee. Sorry about that. It's not an important phone call. Keep that on the it's funny about coffee. I have a tough time with. I think I talked about this a little bit last week too, but I have a tough time with coffee as a note because I have such a strong association with it as purely something to drink. Like whenever I wear something that has coffee on it, it smells like I spilled coffee on me. Oh. It's just it's this weird association that I have. However, that's more so if it's sort of like the lead role, but if it has more of like a supporting role, if it's more sort of like in the mix, I can appreciate it in the way that it sort of interacts with the other things.
Right.
But yeah,
not a year forward fragrance. I get you.
Yeah. What are your favorite coffee fragrances, Joshua?
What was that?
What are your favorite coffee fragrances?
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing the ones that you like.
One, there's a couple that I pulled to talk about, but one of them is Cafe V from Olympic Orchids, and now it's interesting because I've worn that. I've tried that in different seasons, and I get different things at different times. Where when I wear it in the fall, I get more woody, but there is a coffee note that's in there. I think when I wore it in the spring, I had more like a coffee forward, and then in the summer when it was quite hot, the chocolate seemed to pierce through. But it has this chocolate coffee woody thing going, and that's one of my favorites to wear this time of year. That would be probably my go-to. And then I wore one yesterday, which was Chris Collins' Sweet Taboo, and that has coffee that kind of making its way through. Man, that's gorgeous. The notes are like clary sage, cardamom, cinnamon, geranium, cacao, coffee, benzoin, siam, tonka bean, vanilla, and musk. And it was
that sounds good. Those are some great notes to go with coffee. I think the idea of cardamom and coffee is excellent. I love to actually put cardamom into coffee.
Yeah, and there actually Cafe V also has cardamom. In fact, someone in the community on IG mentioned that they view it as a cardamom fragrance. Now she's out of England, so her weather is probably much more damp and damp and cooler. And I found that interesting that, and her skin's going to be different too. But I love that conversation just because I'm like, no, I didn't get cardamom. I got woody, and
yeah,
it's a great fragrance.
Those Olympic Orchids I've liked what I've tried from Olympic Orchids. I haven't tried that one, but I'll have to look out for it.
Yeah, it's great.
I love her stuff. It's so it's almost like Kabbalistic. It's like really what's the word I'm looking for? It's there's a density to it. She loves to use a lot of molybdenum and labdanum, and I love that. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
I think her name is Ellen Covey. Is that her name? Ellen Covey? Yep. Yeah, she's a fascinating individual for sure. I think the only two fragrances that I have in my collection that have a coffee note, or that I'm aware of, I'm sure maybe it's buried somewhere in some other fragrances, is actually two from L'Art de Saint Parfumeur. Eau de Navigateur, which is an oldie of theirs. It's been discontinued. And Noir Exquis, which is a Bertrand Duchefort, which to me is even more so sort of like a chestnut fragrance.
Ooh.
And that one's lovely. That one's really that. And I'm not like a huge gourmand person. I'm really fastidious when it comes to it, but it's certain gourmand notes I just have a penchant for, like nutty things and dried fruits and plums and all kinds of stuff, dates. So that's that kind of falls into that kind of terrain, but it does have a coffee in it, but it's a coffee that just makes sense to me. It doesn't smell like straight up coffee.
It's subtle in that. It's subtle in that. I'm thrilled to actually see you mention that, because that tends to get in certain circles. Like, so when L'Artisan did its like lineup reshuffling, like one of the fragrances to go out was the much beloved Tea for Two, and then kind of like Noir X Key came in. But I think Noir X Key is a lovely, lovely fragrance, and I was trying to think of fragrances I had that had coffee in it. As soon as you mentioned that one, I was like, yes, I have that one.
Right. I'm so picky about like gourmand sort of stuff, but that just like hits all the right spots for me. I love it. Maybe because I'm a Bertrand Duchefort fanboy, or especially just, you know, that whole time period of when he was making stuff.
Chestnut's great. The chestnut is so nice and smoky in that, because he accentuates it with I think it cites an official smoke note in the pyramid. Like there's kind of like a smoky quality that really like is really quite nice in that. Have either of you tried Hilde Soliani Bel Antonio?
No, I'm not familiar.
So Bel Antonio, so I collect a lot of tobacco scents, and the scents I have with coffee tend to have tobacco in it. I think it actually makes a very nice pairing when you have those notes together. And so Bel Antonio is very much an Italian aromatic in the classic style, but it combines like cigarette tobacco and coffee. So it's like a cigarettes and coffee kind of fragrance with a bit of like a gentlemanly air to it. Like if you imagine like a gentlemanly, sophisticated Italian gentleman version of a coffee and cigarettes fragrance, that's what it is. It has a grassy undertone that's kind of very interesting. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's one of the best tobacco fragrances ever made.
Really?
In terms of being very beautiful. So would recommend you seek it out if you like. It has a great coffee note.
And what's it called again?
Ryan, do you mind putting it into the chat just for folks? Excellent.
Yeah. Here, give me a second. Yeah, I just put it into the chat.
Excellent.
Gorgeous coffee note. Because it's a relatively simple Italian aromatic, that coffee really comes through well. It's like a roasted coffee bean kind of note that I like a lot. I've roasted my own coffee before, and so I enjoy the smell of roasted coffee. So it's kind of like that sort of coffee note, as opposed to like a coffee with cream, which is more what I kind of get in like Noir X Key or something like that.
Right. And that maybe it could just be that I haven't found the right kind of fresh roasted coffee kind of fragrance that doesn't make me feel like I spilled coffee on myself, and maybe that could be it. Also, rose and coffee intrigues me, and the only fragrance that I've sampled that there was Cafe Rose, and that's the Tom Ford, and I was underwhelmed by that one. So I'd be interested in encountering a rose and coffee fragrance that works, that appeals to me. Does anybody who's tuned in, is there a rose coffee scent that you'd recommend?
I got one.
You do? Oh, awesome.
Fidelis.
Oh, so it's an Histoire de Parfum. Okay.
It's the rose, coffee, and there's a bit of chocolate in there.
Ah, okay.
Is it gourmand leaning? I haven't tried a lot of that line from Histoire de Parfum.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I wear that a bit more when it gets colder, but I like it. I don't know why. I just feel like it performs better. Again, I'm coming from Montana where it got cold. You know, in the cold that performs really nicely. Yeah, and I struggle with chocolate sometimes.
I do too.
Yeah, I like a drier chocolate.
Yeah, I like more cacao. Like I like what cacao can do. Yeah. Basically, that's just raw chocolate without any of the sweetness, no milk, it's just like a cacao pod. So if it's just too literal chocolate, or if it's like chocolate dessert, I'm not too thrilled with it.
I'm the same way. And on my skin, some chocolates smell like Tootsie Rolls, and I don't want to go around smelling like a Tootsie Roll.
Ew! Sorry. That sort of response definitely needs a screen for my mic. Yeah, Tootsie Rolls. Yeah, I've never been a fan. I always thought that they were ghastly. This is so gross. Like the chewiness and the artificial vanilla chocolate kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
stuff that never got eaten on Halloween, right? Like,
yeah.
Well,
Kids would try to give me the Tootsie Rolls because they were like, "Well, you eat the black licorice jelly beans. You surely you must love Tootsie Rolls too." And I'm like, "No, I don't go that far. I might like licorice, but I don't eat that kind of doo doo." And it looks like doo doo.
there are two chocolate, like true chocolate, like almost like Soliflor fragrances that I really do like. And one is Acro Dark, which is
Okay.
a dark chocolate, and it's kind of like a like I'm borrowing somebody else's description when they say it this way, but it starts off kind of like rough and animalic, almost like you're chopping up the like, raw cocoa nibs, like crushing them in real time. So they're kind of earthy, it's got like edges, and then it turns into like kind of like smoothed out, like dark chocolate liqueur feeling. Kind of go through it. And I think that one is kind of like severe and dark chocolate enough that I like it. And the other one is Clandestine Laboratories Novichok, which is like raw cocoa powder, like high grade, like mostly unsweetened cocoa powder, like as if you had just opened up a bag of cocoa powder and the dust just inhaled and you coughed a little bit. Like it's that kind of feeling, and it's both very interesting takes on the theme. Kind of untraditional gourmands in both ways.
Somehow I'm interested in that, even though the description sounds like it could be suffocating. I would, count me in. I'd like to try it. I think I really should showcase some of the Clandestine Laboratories fragrances. I think for an independent house, what he does is extraordinary. So that's my shout out to Clandestine Laboratories. Just going back to the chat here just a little bit. I can't do Montal fragrances, at least based on the ones I've tried. I was thinking of Chocolate Greedy when we started talking about chocolate, and that's exactly the kind of chocolate that I can't do. I don't know what on earth. I couldn't walk around and take myself seriously. Just my humble opinion. I'm sorry if I'm offending those who enjoy Chocolate Greedy. But I can't just do my chocolate that way in fragrance. But Montel can be rough. There's a couple of Montels that I do enjoy, but they are definitely some pretty nuclear and often synthetic smelling fragrances to my nose. And little did I know that you had or maybe you just mentioned it right now as I mentioned it. Yes, it is vomit inducing for sure. So, how about, you were mentioning Histoire de Parfum, and I have one here as well. How about patchouli this time of year? I really do enjoy patchouli as the temperatures start to drop. Some patchoulis are great in warmer weather, but there's some that are just perfectly suited as the temperatures cool down. This one, Noir patchouli, which... Have you guys tried this one, or are you familiar with it? So this, to me, it almost kind of reminds me of Aromatics Elixir a little bit, but it's if you took just the patchouli experience of Aromatics Elixir and you expanded upon that. What are your thoughts on this one? If you actually tried it.
I thought it was fantastic. I did. I had one of the small, like 15 ml bottles, I think, that they sell from that of those for a while.
Oh, those are great. The sort of the thin column little 50. Yeah, those are really good.
They're great. They're great minis. Just
for sure.
But I really enjoyed that experience as far as a patchouli scent. I don't tend to wear a ton of stuff that's patchouli forward. I mean, patchouli's in like, 2/3 of every 2/3.
Right. It's always there playing some sort of role in the background. Yeah.
Right. But I would say of like patchouli forward perfumes, that was one that I thought was very beautiful and could wear quite often. I'm trying to think what I have in the patchouli space right now. Probably only my vintage bottle of Guerlain L'Instant Eau Extreme, which is more patchouli forward, either through aging or through reformulation, though that one definitely went through at least 2 reformulations. Than the current, though I think that leans that that has a lot of other stuff going on, but it does just essentially dry down to patchouli on my skin. All the other stuff falls away. So that's
No, I agree. I only have L'Instant, the Eau de Parfum version. I don't have the older Extreme. I'm happy with it. I think it's an enjoyable wear, but I know that folks often say that it isn't quite the same. But
it's not the same. It's not inferior, though. I would say the newer version. The newer version leans more gourmand than what I've tried of the vintage, and so that would be my primary advice. I did a comparison video. If anybody wants to look at my channel, I think it's my most popular video. Is actually doing the comparison between the Eau de Parfum and the vintage Eau Extreme. But nobody needs to go crazy paying the prices that folks are now paying for the vintage. It's not.
Right. I think it's important for people to hear that they don't have to get the older bottle to get a pretty good approximation. Like they're pretty close, right?
They're not. One is not inferior to the other as compositions. It's almost like if you want the balance more towards some of the gourmand notes, that's the Eau de Parfum. If you want the balance towards a kind of like damp patchouli, that's the vintage. But there are other scents you can seek out today that are cheaper than a vintage bottle of Eau Extreme that will give you a lovely damp patchouli. You don't need to go to the vintage Garland experience to get.
So I've struggled with patchouli for a long time. There's 2 patchouli fragrances that I've really tried to explore and see if there's some that I like. There are 2 I like, but so I'm wondering, are there any is that a darker patchouli? Like, does it kind of, would you say it's, because the ones I have are sparkly and light, and I like that, but I'm looking for one that I'll like that's darker too. So
I actually wouldn't say this is a very dark patchouli. It sings. It has a brightness to it that settles into something deeper. It gets warmer in the dry down, but there are far darker patchoulis that are out there. And one was actually, Pep just mentioned, and it's a favorite of mine, Santa Maria Novello patchouli. You want to talk about like a hardcore patchouli, like pulls no punches, like dirty, like medicinal, like dank, just gothic almost. It is like patchouli to the nth degree. It is like my favorite patchouli though. But that one, if you want to try like a patchouli for patchouli lovers, that's one that you should try.
Okay.
And once again, my tip from earlier, if you want to sample things from Santa Maria Novello, you can do so at 80sperfumery.com. They're not my sponsor or anything. I'm just telling people because it's so hard to find samples. They're a little stingy about that unless a particular vendor sells their products. So
right.
Yeah, and 80s is a great shop. I've bought from them before. I vouched for them in the comments when you mentioned them before. 80s is thumbs up. They do carry some really good lines, including their own line, which is beloved by many. So I just wanted to bring to the attention Ryan's channel. Please let me know if that link is operative, that you can actually click on that link. Please subscribe to his channel. He has some excellent reviews and videos. He's always a pleasure, in my opinion, to listen to news about fragrance. So I wanted to share that. Joshua, do you have a YouTube channel, or is your presence mostly just Instagram?
Yeah, just on Instagram. I've toyed with the idea maybe next year of jumping on, then we'll see.
And if I'm not mistaken, that will be _Essential Notes _, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's for folks. Check them out. What I love about Joshua's posts is he will highlight a particular note and reach out to those following him to make suggestions or share their thoughts on a particular note. which I think is a brilliant idea. His most recent one was on hay, and I was really more than thrilled to recommend something because I love hay. Hay, like a fresh mown hay accord, is like one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So that's an excellent note. So yeah, please do subscribe to Ryan and follow Joshua. Here we go.
And hay is a lovely note. I agree. Hay.
Yeah.
So one of the first things, I don't really wear it much because I actually swapped it out. But one of the things I remember when I first tried Chergui was the hay note was the first thing that came across me. And that was the thing I loved most about it. And that's why that fragrance immediately makes me think of autumn whenever I smell it. Is just if a fragrance has a dry sort of hay note in it, it makes me think of harvest time.
Yeah.
Serge Lutens has so many great autumnal and wintry fragrances. Chergui was one of my first loves from Serge Lutens. Still remember that day that I walked into Barney's 14 years ago, and I walked up to that counter, these tall, monolithic-looking bottles with these cool labels. What is this? I don't know anything. Just a baby. Don't know that much about fragrance. I don't even think niche was used as a term. I'd never heard of it in 2007. And the first samples that were given to me from that house were Ambre Sultan, Chergui, and Cedla, and Arabi. And Arabi is one of my favorites. I know that, and it's kind of funny that that's one of my favorites because that's like a really gourmand, sweet fragrance, but I absolutely love it. Arabi is just like a spice bazaar. It's just so, I don't know. It just sets me in a great mood.
Yeah.
So are you guys familiar with, I just put this comment up here, Monsieur, Monsieur from Frederick Malle. What's your take on Monsieur?
I haven't smelled it, to be honest.
Hot take, Ryan? Here's your hot take.
I like my only take on Frederick Malle, and don't hate me, is I've never emotionally connected with a single Malle I've tried. And I remember sampling this one at one point, and I don't have any particular notes to give you on that, but everything I've tried from the Malle line seems both impeccably made, but also kind of just leaves me a little cold, and I don't know what it is.
You're going to have some people clutching their pearls. They're going to gasp. They're going to reach for their smelling salts. People are going to be horrified, but you know what? I love it because we can't be in an echo chamber. I'm with you. I'm with you half the way. Like all of my favorite Frederick Malles are like the least lauded. Like they're all the ones that like are maybe like a little too intellectual for people that are like dated or a little off kilter. Like I love like the Edmund Rudnitska Parfum de Therese. I like Nora Peace, which is not modern at all, and Une Fleur de Cassis, which is terrifying to probably the average modern perfumer. And I just adore all of them. But the ones like Portrait of a Lady and Musk Ravageur, and what are some of the other French Lover? They're all nice, but they don't make my heart skip a beat. All the really beloved ones, the ones that get all the attention. So
I've always wanted to try which one is it, the moon one, right?
Oh God, yeah. Those are
very expensive, right?
Extremely.
Yeah. I've always been curious about that, just to try, because people whose tastes I respect seem to really like that one. But yeah.
I went into the Frederick Malle boutique in New York City in 2019, and I sampled those, and two of them were out of this world powerful, and one of those two was such a just barbaric oud. Like it was interesting. I don't think I could wear it, but it was just this oud it smelled like Roquefort cheese, a little feet smelling. It was really off-putting with the first spray. It dried down to something a little bit more palatable. I don't know which one of those was. I don't know, but I don't know if it's Promise or Sun or Moon or Stars or I have no idea. I remember out of all of those, though, the Moon was the most. I warmed up to that one the most, but the price tag, like, and it never come up for discount, so it's like forget about it. Those are like ones that, like, yeah, the samples, I'm good. So, yeah. So, Joshua, are you familiar with Frederick Mall? It's completely okay if you aren't. No judgment here. I'm not going to pull one of those stunts like, oh my god, you haven't seen
No.
Frederick
The
Mall.
only one that I've tried and I sought out because I heard so much about it was Portrait of a Lady.
Yeah.
I love Rose, but I actually hated that perfume.
Oh, really? Hot takes. I like hot takes. I like them.
Just on my skin, it smelled like I was doing yard work all day, and there were like roses maybe in the background. Like, like that's what it was. And I'm like, I struggled with yard work when I was younger. I don't want to like, I don't want to smell like that. You know what I mean? But it was maybe it was just my skin. A lot of people love it, and that's cool. And
you bring up a really good point, Joshua. Often it just has to do with how our skin or our chemistry responds to it. Some people think that's horseshit, but I think there is some truth to it. You know, pH levels, dry skin versus oily skin, how the temperature of your own body affects it, even your diet. I think a lot of those play a role. And I also think that's the reason why certain fragrances, maybe the first time around, I will be underwhelmed or even displeased with it. And then sometimes I'll give it a second chance, like months later, if I still have the sample, and I change my mind because it could have been just a different time of year and maybe my diet was different or who knows what. It's interesting. It's a fascinating topic to explore. Rose works for me, though. Like, I love Rose. Give me Rose. Like, I'll wear freaking, Tea Rose by Perfumers Workshop. Like, I love any kind of rose.
I do too.
Oh, sorry, Joshua. Go ahead, Joshua.
Oh,
yeah.
I went back to that one just like you had mentioned. Maybe it was, a different, season, and maybe I'll like it now. And I tried it in different climates, and it just wasn't for me. But skin to me is huge, because my skin is smoky. It gives off a smoky element. It will add a smoky element to fragrances, and that could be good and that could be bad. For burning Barbershop, like which was mentioned earlier, it was bad. Like, it smelled like ash. But
I could see it. Do you have an autumnal rose scent, if you like rose a lot, that you would think of as your like go-to autumn rose?
An autumn rose. La Fille de Berlin by Serge Lutens, I think, is really great in autumn. But I have one also that's
rose scent.
I love that one. And it's more than rose. It's like rose and geranium, and this is not just me picking at the notes pyramid, but it has Palmarosa, and I know what Palmarosa smells like as an essential oil. It's in there, and it's like this sort of like lemony terpenic kind of greenish quality to it when you dry it, but also there's that wine kind of quality. I love it. I can't speak highly enough about it. I love La Fille de Berlin. I like it more than some Just La Rose, which I felt like was just kind of a pedestrian rose. Here I am with a pedestrian. But I wanted to mention this one because this is cheap and cheerful, and it's in a wonderfully garish bottle. I mean, what is going on here? Can we talk about this? Can we talk, like, what's going on? It's like a cross between a bowling pin and an oil cruet.
That's something.
It is something. This is Instagram worthy right here, okay? This is actually Glé Cabaret. This was released in, I think, the late 90s or early 2000s. And this is my idea of like a great sheer rose patchouli. And this I like way more than Portrait of a Lady. And it's way cheaper. Love it. So good.
That's cool.
Maybe this will work better on your skin, Josh, and then you don't even have to worry about spending too much money if you don't like it. I guess you could just give me another bottle or give it to someone else, or look for a sample. Yeah. Try it out. Maybe that's the kind of rose that you need. This one's a little bit more patchouli. This was marketed to women, but there's nothing really particularly too feminine about it. It's really unisex.
I love have you tried Miracle of Roses by Miguel Matos.
I have not.
Oh,
Tell us about it.
so good. My wife begs me to put that on before I come to bed sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's basically it has this yeasty kind of smell with it, and there's cinnamon and I think cardamom, and then the rose. There's a lactonic undertone, and it cut the concept is really cool. It was, I think, the Queen of Portugal was out feeding kind of the homeless or the needy, and her husband told her, "Hey, no more doing that," and she was sneaking bread. To feed them. And then she got caught one time coming back, and they said they wanted her to open her cloak because she had bread under there. And then when she had opened it, it was rose petals fell to the ground.
Whoa, that's wild.
And it is so good. So
really?
Good.
Okay, time to put that into the chat. Put that into the chat, Josh, so that folks know what you're chatting about, because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some people are like, yeasty. Oh.
I mean, I just looked up I was just Googling the note pyramid in the background. Actually, that sounds fascinating to me. So I would like to try that. I have a rose dominant perfume here that I first sampled this blind, so I immediately liked it. And so when you sample things blind and you know you like it, all the baggage goes away, which is great. So this is Zoologist Camel, which I think of this line, this is the only one that's really been like a hit for me. And it's because it just has such a more than like the dry down, it has such a fabulous opening of slightly, like, tastefully for me, slightly animalic tones. You'll see people mention that in reviews. It's not animalic by the standards of like animalic perfumery, but it does have a slight thing going on there with like dense incense, resins, dried fruit, smokiness. And under it, you have this rose. And what it actually turns into is this beautiful, slightly smoky rose on skin that is actually very easy to wear. I really think this is beautifully done. But I love it more for the opening and mid than the late dry down, which is more just like a slightly smoky rose. But those first two acts are just showstopper stuff. The opening, I love it. I want to put it on right now.
That's one of the zoologists that caught my eye when I was looking at some of their stuff. Like, it stood out. So definitely interesting. Definitely put that on the list to try.
So we have an inquiry from my good friend Mr. Clean. JJ, how are those sample dry downs doing on you? So I did 3 samples, first impressions. That was about an hour and 20 minutes ago. So I can revisit those, starting with the Maison Crivelli Osmant Kodoshan. That was the first one that was here. Kind of a nothing burger. Pretty. That's all I'll say about that one. And then the next one, the Ormond Jane Taif, which was on this end. Oh boy. This is a very pink, pretty, fluffy, almost potpourri kind of rose. A little dusty, a little powdery. It's nice. I'm not in love with it. And then I'm becoming pickier and pickier in my old age, I think. And then Marc-Antoine Berrois Ganymede, which was on this wrist. Ooh, this kind of smells like clary sage now, oddly enough, on my skin. I didn't expect this, but out of the 3, this is the one that I like the most. Now, I'm not going to go run out and buy a bottle of it, but not bad. I like the dry down. It's a nice modern leather. So that's your update. I'll do one last update at the end of the stream.
So do you have, and Joshua, to you too, but do you have a favorite leather, like an all-time singular favorite leather?
I have to tell you, Santa Maria Novella has a few of my favorite fragrances.
Are you going to say Cote d'Espagne? Am I going to mute you? Okay.
Oh, God. That is raw, rugged, rough. It's like a roughneck leather. It is like saddle soap, horse stable, smoky, cade. The juice is really dark. It's just everything about it is like so fucking good. It is my favorite leather. Yeah, definitely. Some other favorite leathers. I do happen to have a thing for like more suede-ish, kind of like brush suede leathers too. Like I love Credange from Hermescence, Dame Blanc from Sur Vuitton. Yeah, those are a couple that I'm thinking of. Some of those like the older leathers too, like Bandit, the isobutyl quinoline kind of smoky tobacco kind of leathers, Jolie Madame, cabochard, that kind of thing. That the early to mid-century kind of leather style, Canizza 10. But yeah. How about you guys? What do you like about what kind of leathers do you like?
You first, Josh.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It's the overall composition. If I like it, it's not a specific soft or green or smoky or it would all vary. I think one for fall that I like. I view it as a leather scent would be Zaharoff's the Siren that. Was it Curly Scents that put that out? A lot of people didn't like that when that came out, but I liked it, and I kind of categorize that as a leather fragrance. I mean, it had a lot of deeper, darker notes in that, but yeah, I mean, I love a lot of different leathers. I'm open to. I have green ones I like. I have. I just wore the other day golden ambergris, which was that's kind of like a smoky ambergris leather. That was, that's a little rough for some people. Because it comes out, and there's an oceanic. I think I grew up near the coast too, so there's an oceanic kind of quality to it that I really like. But what about yourself?
Well, first off, I have to try golden ambergris because I just took a peek at that, and it seems like it has a more realistic ambergris leaning, which to me is my favorite kind of marine aquatic accord. So if that's the case, and I'm at the point in my perfume journey where if like the Fragrantica review score is like below 4 stars, it's of probably more interest to me than if it's above. So
yeah, same. It's like I was saying earlier. If people like say that something is like gross or weird or old person, like it makes me more interested in it.
So I think so. Pep is mentioning one of my favorite leathers, and I think I would say, like, if I were to choose a singular leather, because it is a very focused leather scent, Floris leather oud for me is like a very nice gentlemanly saddle leather sort of aroma with some very nice floral elements to it, and a very tasteful but recognizable oud base, but in like a British way, which is fun to me. I really like that one, but I would say for autumn in particular, because I tend to wear that in springtime, given its kind of like floral elements and cleanliness. What I wear in autumn a lot as a leather, and I've talked about this before, it's my favorite from this house, Carner Barcelona Sandor 70s.
Oh yeah, I want you.
Oh,
I need to sample that. Upon your recommendation, you recommended that to me. I have to get a
Yes,
sample
I
of it.
just this stuff. So this I got originally. I got a sample of it, and I just drained the sample. It's kind of a horse stable leather, but there's like actually, if you look at like the official way the perfume was structured by Rodrigo Flores Roux, he actually cites 3 different kinds of leather accords in it in the same perfume that he was trying to create. So there's a suede leather, there's a Spanish leather accord, and then I can't remember what the other one is. But you get kind of like a gentleman's like horse stable feeling from it. It's not it's not dirty, but there's something like the tobacco note is more of the earthy side in this, and then you get like lovely leather aromas. It's just and some dried fruit stickiness to give it like a golden edge. Like it's just
nice.
yeah. Oh, that
sounds great.
I think, you know, I don't use the masterpiece word lightly, but I think that's probably Rodrigo Flores Roux's best.
Could
word.
Carner Barcelona have a masterpiece in its line? I have a few samples from Carner Barcelona that I'd like to. Maybe next week I'll do first impressions on it. I don't yet have Sander. Sander 1970s, is that what it's called?
It's just Sandor 70s.
Sandor 70s.
Yes, it's a bar. It was a bar in Barcelona, I think.
Yeah.
And it's meant to evoke that, like the cigars and leather chairs and things like that. But for me, it's always going to be a horse stable scent.
Right.
I think it's yeah.
So Davidoff Zeno needs some respect. Always respect for Davidoff Zeno. It is one of the most exceptional releases of the 1980s, and we're very fortunate that it still exists in this time of an age, and it has aged well, and reformulations have not hurt it. That's a great one. Yeah, I respect it greatly, and it's great this time of year too. Another great patchouli. All right, let's see what's going on, Niels. Joshua, yes.
Oh, go ahead. So, well, Ryan had mentioned tobacco, so I was curious: is there a tobacco that you kind of lean for, during this time of year?
I lean towards too many tobaccos this time of year. Like my collection, like I just have like a shelf of tobaccos.
Yeah, Ryan and I are huge tobacco fiends. I should grab one of my tobaccos. I don't have one. I do actually have one on deck here.
So I'll not like I've done so many tobacco videos on my channel. I'm not gonna like talk about all my favorite tobaccos over and over again. I mean, like Armis Havana will always be my number one. Santa Maria Novella, Aqua de Cuba is up there. Atman Zaman,
which I have the EDT and the EDP now.
Superb.
That's how much I love it. I was like, I have to try the EDP.
I mean,
they're both great.
I did bring this out. I have Mask Milano Monte Cristo, which I like. I think it's more of a leather than a tobacco, but it falls in that. But so let's talk about 2 of the relatively newer tobaccos that I have. One, Clandestine Laboratories. They show up again. I own a lot of Clandestine Laboratories. Big fan of this house. Big fan of Mark Sage's work. This is one of his relatively recent creations, but when I saw he was doing a tobacco fragrance, I kind of jumped at the opportunity. This is Orpheus. A kind of like it's a cola-y tobacco, like very much like a cola herbal, like Italian liqueur sort of feel, like an aperitif. But I say this well, like Mark sometimes likes to push lemon in a slightly like pissy direction.
Yeah.
Here. That happens here. So you get kind of like an opening lemony citrus that's a little bit there, but like not so much that it's off-putting. And then you get this nice like dark tobacco base. I think this is great. And then the other newest one that I got that I know JJ is a fan of is Atkinson's The Oddfellows.
I do love that one. That is like the only Atkinson's from that whole modern line that it just stands out above all the other ones. And there's a heliotrope in it, which I'm like, I just love the cozy, comfy Play-Doh cherry pie kind of heliotrope, and how it sort of melds with the tobacco in there. It's a wonderful one. I don't recall who the perfumer is on that one, or even if we have knowledge of the perfumer, but that one's, I dare say it's stunning. I love it. It's so good.
It's the best from Atkinson's that I've tried
by a country mile. Yeah.
And it's interesting that it doesn't get enough talk. People tend to write it off as a tobacco vanille clone, which makes no sense to me.
Not at all. Absolutely not. I would hazard to say that it's actually better than tobacco vanille.
And what's it called? What's it called again?
It's the Oddfellows bouquet.
Oddfellows.
I'll put it in the chat. Atkinson's.
Yes, Sticks 10.2 Schlonghammer, opened by Roger and Gallet this time of year. Yeah, that's a great. I love that's a really
open.
Tobacco. Love it, and that's still great. New bottles. I don't care when the bottle. It's just so good. Oh.
I mean that's one of the open is one of the best budget buy fragrances out there. I think I got a bottle for $13, and I don't.
It's so good. Oh my god! I have the
tobacco note in it is so immediately recognizable as tobacco. It's like such a tobacco note.
Yeah.
I really think that I get a kick out of that.
The bottle, I get a kick out of it too. I mean, it's not this kind of garish, but there's something to it, like that like asymmetrical like bulb for the cap, the Optima font. It looks really clinical. Like it just speaks to like the design nerd in me, like that kind of like it's just so like 80s. I love it.
I swear I shouldn't say this on the stream, but I'm just gonna buy a bunch of stuff like open and then rebottle it and launch my own personal fragrance line and see how well it goes over. I think I can do pretty well for myself that way.
Dan mentions Open Black, and that's actually a great flanker to open. It is. The other ones I wasn't too crazy about, but Open Black is great. It kind of fuses the tobacco with sort of like that classic 80s style kind of Clos Fougere. And I think that would be more up Dan's alley if the dry desiccated kind of tobacco is a little much, but I really enjoy both. Tobacco Reserve from Aramis. Ryan, you and I chatted about that one. I like that one. Yeah.
I still have it. I'm going through like culling a bunch of my collection, but I'm actually holding on to that one because it's just so darn wearable. I feel like it's really nice. I mean, it's the nutmeg in it is great. Really nice clary sage.
It's almost more a clary sage fragrance than a tobacco fragrance. Like that whole opening is it my nose picks up clary sage absolute. Not that so much like the the essential oil, but clary sage absolute has a kind of like a tobacco feel to it anyways, and that whole opening into the dry down into the heart is it's very much it's clary sage reserve with tobacco as as a special guest, I guess.
I think it is. I think part of the trick it's trying to pull off there is by combining tonka, which is used to cure tobacco, and clary sage. It's trying to create like an abstraction of tobacco, and I think it works really well on that. And I think that one was justly celebrated before its discontinuation.
Yeah, and that one was miles better than the modern leather. The modern leather was like,
it was okay. It was like lots of violet, if I recall correctly, like kind of a shrug. I did like Special Reserve, which was kind of interesting because it had like a bit of an aldehydic opening that kind of paid homage to the original Aramis, and then it went into a not particularly sweet by modern standards, kind of boozy, like whiskey spilled on tree bark kind of art that then turns into like a warm cinnamon spiced, like slightly warm tonka dry down in the base, but it's not as tonka forward as like tobacco reserve or anything like that.
That
It's
seems like it would be really done. Joshua's cup of tea. Like I saw you kind of perk your ears up there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I really like this one this time of year too. The Oud affair.
I've heard about that. So talk to me about it. What's the Oud affair like?
It's a tobacco. Well, I would view it as a tobacco, and it has like this ginger butter note that just melts so beautifully with the tobacco. And I mean, my brother I had this just as a sample, and my brother like went out and bought a bottle like the same day he smelled the sample. He was just blown away. What it reminded us of was like our grandpa used to smoke a pipe, so that sweet kind of tobacco, but you still have like the kind of like the smokiness residue that's left on the pipe.
Yeah,
just was like it just kind of encapsulated that whole memory, which was super cool. I don't know why it's called the Oud affair.
Oud is a buzzword.
Right.
It is.
I mean,
it is.
It was. I think it's a. I forget. It's about a specific affair between two celebrities that was kind of hush hush. So I don't know if it's like supposed to be a play on words, like the good affair and the Oud affair. I don't know, but I like it. And then another one that I'm looking forward to wearing. I haven't worn it a lot. I just got it. Was East of Eden by Pomaris Stolen Perfume. And are you guys familiar with that house?
No.
Okay, she's out of Venice, California. She, in my mind, she's kind of like the badass of perfume. She goes out to the forest and forges. She utilizes redwood, and she forges gathers it and then distills it herself. This has redwood in it, and it also has an opium pipe accord, which is really interesting. Mixed with strawberries, berries, soil, rose, and heliotrope.
Nice. Strawberry goes very well with conifers. I find that strawberry paired with like balsam fir or spruce. There's something about that particular profile, that scent profile of strawberry, whether it's like a fresh or a jammy kind of strawberry, works very well with coniferous notes. Put that one in the chat for our folks. Type that one in.
And I'm super partial to it in the sense that it's called East of Eden, and it's based out of off the town where I grew up, Salinas, California. And the John Steinbeck book.
Right.
Okay, so I found
interesting. Also a wine sommelier.
Yeah, she's
really
chick for sure.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I think what I've noticed more and more, and I think this is just the trajectory of fragrance conversation these days, is that more and more fragrance chats are featuring more and more artisanal perfumers or independent perfumers, but more and more artisanal perfumers, which is hard for us to keep up with as individuals because it seems like there's another exciting new house on the block every week. But is kind of interesting. I didn't think my collection would ever skew that way, but now my collection is increasingly skewing towards independent and artisanal houses, and I guess it's just because it's what I've been smelling more of these days.
And that is where I lean that way right now, just because I find I like the creativity there. I think Joseph, you mentioned something like if it lasts an hour, what difference does it make if you find that 1 hour incredible, right? So I love the art, the artistry of it, and I think, to be honest, a lot of my collection is based on what the hell they tried to achieve this, and they nailed it for even if it only lasts on my skin 2 or 3 hours, or I just kind of like that, and I like that more than having something that I feel is wearable. But
Right.
That's my personal preference. You know.
And I find, with the development curve of a lot of fragrances, it's just the law of diminishing returns anyhow. And if you're going to get a fragrance that is built to last, the majority of that development ends up being a dry down with fixatives, and you get anosmic to it anyways, or you get tired of it. That's how I feel. And from my experience, it's kind of like I've moved on, and it's kind of getting on my nerves with some of these, really high performing fragrances. It's kind of like they wear out their welcome after a while. It's like, now I want to move on to a new experience. I almost like the idea of having the opportunity to reapply and have a new scent experience later in the day, or reapply and enjoy those top notes and heart notes, which are fundamentally not meant to last. So you just have to revisit them. But I'm a huge proponent of the experiential nature of fragrance rather than having it be purely a utility to work for you. Yeah.
But
There
I
are
mean,
so
with that,
many beautiful Oh, go ahead, John.
you go ahead. Sorry, Ryan.
I was going to say, there are so many beautiful aromatic perfumes that you would ruin if you amplified the base notes enough. I don't know. There's just so, like, I've never understood the complaint for that. I understand when perfume has gotten crazy expensive in this day and age. So I understand when you spend $300 on a bottle of perfume and it lasts an hour on your skin, being a little ticked off that you got a very short experience for your money. I understand the cost ratio there, why some people get upset. But for me, I've never understood the base complaint that like longevity itself was something super desirable. For me, it is always about how it's transporting you emotionally. Like a Montal or Mancera could last ages, but you're just getting like synth scream wood.
Yeah, I know where that transports me to. It transports me to like a major migraine. That's where it transports me to.
Yeah,
and I don't want that ticket. I don't want it. That's not my destination when I'm wearing fragrance.
You're telling me you don't love that one piercing synthetic oud cord that appears in the base of,
Oh, jeez Louise. Jeez Louise.
I know.
Oof. It's just like I don't know. It's like a jackhammer to my head. It really hurts after a while. And like some I have a really tough time with high dosages of ambroxanide and norlimbinol. And when that's combined with ambroxan and then they add, a bunch of Isubi Super and Heady, like it's just migraine inducing. Like some fragrances will give me headaches if I know that they've been built to meet the needs of those who want performance, or I don't know, beast mode or whatever people are calling it.
I literally just tried my first Mancera last week, and I had such a headache from it.
Which one was it?
It was called Sicily.
Sicily.
I don't know that one, but I do. I remember. So I had one of those like little like 1 milliliter dabbers from Lucky Scent at some point for Mancera Red Tobacco. And I remember putting that on my hand and just wanting to die because it was just so loud.
It freaking smells like it could be corrosive. Like it's just so appalling. It is one of the most appalling fragrances I have ever smelled. I was just horrified when I first smelled it. From top to bottom, I don't care what part of the development, there is nothing redeeming about that bilge. Like, I'm sorry. If anybody's tuning in and they appreciate red tobacco, I'm sorry. Hopefully my target audience will agree. But if you do enjoy red tobacco, please forgive me. It is only an opinion. Don't hate me. Don't unsubscribe. Don't leave. Oh, we went down from 39 to 37 viewers. There they go.
But I will say, if you're going to wear red tobacco, just don't do it around me, please.
Just spare me. Spare me.
Spare me, because that fills a room. Like, you could be 15 feet away from me, and I'll feel like you're standing right beside me.
I mean, there are just some brands. I think that the brands know what the consumer wants, and they know how to deliver it. Yeah. They know that that's what they're looking for, and that's the challenge of providing that kind of product that gives them exactly what they want. And if that's what they want, that's fine by me. Just stay away from me. And when you're wearing it, toxic waste.
All right. So do we want to talk? We want to talk about like nuclear bombs. So I mentioned on the last a week ago that I was considering buying Beaufort Coeur de Noir, which I do have, and for the first hour, this thing is just like
God,
birch, tarry, leather bomb on skin, and boy, is it something. But it calms down after a while, and I like it quite a bit. But I will never wear this in polite company. They would shun me.
That is a line that their fragrances scare me. Like, every one of them smells so scary to me, except Fathom V. I fell in love with that one. Every other one of them, I think I mentioned it last week, the one that smells like a baby vomited, like Sweeback cookies. Like, it just smells so vomitous. Like, it smells like butter and vomit and cookies. It is just, what is it called? Lignum vitae?
Oh. Yeah, I know.
Oh my God, it smells. Oh my God, it just like makes me want to cry. And some of the others that I tried from that line, I get it. They're really pushing the envelope. That's what they're about. They're almost kind of like a line that is macabre. It's kind of, like revealing sort of the dark underbelly through fragrance. But my minimum requirement is that it is marginally wearable. That when I wear it, I don't want to scrub it off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have to smell it on paper and keep it off my skin.
So have either of you in Zoologist, have either of you tried T-Rex?
Oh no. God, yeah. Oh my God, visceral response.
So T-Rex is I actually enjoy T-Rex a little bit. Would never wear it, but like I enjoy it. Actually, I put it on, and my wife actually is like, she's like, I like that on you. Okay,
really?
Yeah, but this is a lot like a lot like T-Rex right now. This is something. Maddie, I see you in the chat saying that Mystery Tobacco is the best mainstream smelling tobacco. I like Mystery Tobacco a lot. I stand by that. I've had it. I've never gotten rid of it, and I won't, because it is so wearable and it is so lovely. It's like Mystery Tobacco is like, what if red tobacco was a good fragrance? That's what that is.
Oh, okay. Now, is Mystery Tobacco, is that the Carolina Herrera? Is that
Yeah, it's not gonna rock your socks, but it is just like good taste. It balances some things out with some very nice like bitter patchouli in the base, and it's not super sweet, I would say. Once you get past the opening has sort of like a fruity plum Divana thing going on, but it's very nice.
So Ryan Duncan, aka famous YouTuber, is asking about the birch tar fragrance. That was the Beaufort London one, right? Or
yeah. Beaufort Coeur de Noir. I will type it in the chat, because I guarantee that my terrible French is not good enough for people to figure out what I'm talking about.
Right. I can more pronounce French than speak it fluently, but even there are times where my French speaking friends are like, "You missed the mark, almost, not quite." I try. I give it the old college try. What's up, Joshua?
I want to pick you guys' brain. So there's a few perfumes that I've smelled, and it has this kind of fallen leaf vibe to it, like a slightly damp fallen leaf. And I thought that is it Propolis?
Propolis, yeah, that I love Propolis. For those who aren't aware, Propolis is or Propolis. I don't even know which is the correct pronunciation. I think I've heard it both ways. Is actually collected by social bees, like honeybees, from plants and trees, like resins and waxes and sap, and it's used as sort of a natural medicine for their hives to protect their young, their larvae, and it's also it keeps out anything that could be a disturbance or a threat to the hive, like say if an animal enters the hive and dies in there, or if there's certain things that are trying to come in and parasitize, they use the propolis. It's really great stuff as far as personal health as well. People take it as a supplement, but it smells really cool too.
Yeah.
But please proceed. That's the end of the propolis lesson.
I'm just curious. You know how I posed the question. I'm just curious. What do you guys have any fragrances that kind of feature that or have that kind of overall feeling of those kind of wet fallen leaves?
Yeah, there's a few of them. It's kind of hard to like on the spot. But there's a few that kind of give me that feel. You know what actually can kind of give me that feel is some things that have Immortelle.
Okay.
Can do that. And there are some things that that will have, like just like dry downs that are kind of grassy and hay-like, but that can also sort of lend that fallen leaves kind of quality to it. I mean, speaking of Immortelle, I mean, I do have one of the iconic Immortelle fragrances, Sable here, by Neko.
Oh, Sabla is spectacular.
Makes me think of fallen leaves, even if it doesn't really smell exactly like fallen leaves. It makes me think of this is like the quintessential autumn fragrance, Sabla.
Awesome.
So for me, I think the budget sort of like what makes me think of fallen leaves fragrance, and I've worn this hiking in the White Mountains as recently as a number of weeks ago. Is actually Encre Noire à l'Extrême, which I picked it. I had a bottle, I swapped it, and then recently reacquired it. Thankfully, it's pretty cheap because it's very similar to. It's the closest thing you can get now to Chanel Sycamore, the discontinued Eau de Toilette, really. And I think something about the vetiver note with the ISOE super, and then like the added sort of like resins and like sort of smoky incense on top of it makes me think very much of being in dry, crisp leaves in the fall. And then I would think the other one that does is I just have a small, tiny little bottle of this. I got this in a swap, but it's by Hans Hendley Perfumes.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's a great guy too.
Great guy, and this is his. I think it's Fumet, but it opens up smoky, kind of like a Bois de Assesse or whatever.
Bois d'Assesse. Yeah, the Naomi Goodsir.
Yeah, by the Naomi Goodsir. But it opens up a little bit smoky, but then it dries down to a dark green feel that feels very much like the woods in autumn, kind of like dry, dark woods. Beautiful perfume. This is kind of like the other fragrance I might compare this to is like Tom Ford Noir Anthracite. But like if it was a more natural smelling perfume, because Tom Ford Noir Anthracite it has a biomechanical feeling that I like, but it doesn't make me think of the outdoors.
Right.
That's cool. I smell. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Broken Anatomy, but they have one called Burnt Remedy, and it has that Propolis or Propolis, and I was like, what is that leaf smell? He's like, well, I use this, and so I just want to pick you guys' brains, and I love that one. Yeah,
and I can get back to you. I mean, like I have such a. It's sometimes it's hard for me to to do recall on that, and then like hours later I'll probably send you a message, Joshua, like this definitely reminds me of Fallen Leaves, so I can get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I might make a post.
Yeah.
You guys mind if I share one more? It's just a sample, but I got to rave about it.
Oh yeah. Just a quick second though. I just want to answer Margie's question on Modern Sable. I can't actually answer that. I've never smelled any modern bottles of Anik Goutal. Every Anik Goutal that I have was this or the subsequent version. So I'm not going to. I don't want to sit here and say that they are inferior, but I think it's sort of depends on the fragrance. I can ask around and report back and see if anybody has a modern bottle of Sable.
I've only tried vintage Sable, so I couldn't say. But vintage Sable was that's one of the great. I think of it. Is it wrong? Would you say it's wrong for me to think of it as an amber perfume? Because I think of it primarily as an amber.
Oh yeah, I would think of it as sort of a take on the amber, at least in feel, and it does have some elements that would be in an amber accord for sure. It's sort of an entity onto its own. It's still mind-blowing to think that was released by Anik Goutal in 1985. Like,
it doesn't feel like that. No.
But Margie, I will ask around and see if I can get some word on Modern Sable and see if it still holds up. Joshua, let's have you share your the next fragrance.
Yeah, it's just a sample. I need a bottle of it, but it's called Cave Art by Deep Filled Aromatics, and it's called Cave Art. It's like you're in a cave, but it has this super cool dynamic of being a damp cave, but this dry dustiness that kind of settles over the top of it, and it just kind of blew my mind, like how both of those kind of facets work simultaneously together to achieve that. And I was just stunned. I will try to get a bottle of that and wear that. But yeah, I just love that feel. The idea of, this old dusty cave, but it's also damp. And I felt like he pulled it off. The guy Russell that did it beautifully.
See, when I hear adjectives like that, it piques my interest. I think that the average fragrance wearer or enthusiast might be put off by adjectives like dusty or dank or damp or cellar-like, but that just like that reels me in. I'm like, I want to know. I want to know what that's like. I love that. That sounds really cool. So Jonathan actually is sampling Burnt Remedies even as we speak and is really enjoying it. So we have somebody else who's really enjoying it. Great stuff. So, there's no hard, fast ending to this. We'll wrap up pretty soon. Are there any other things that you wanted to share? Are there any other aspects of autumn fragrances? What about vanillas? Are you fans of vanilla fragrances? Yeah. Let's round things off tonight with vanilla fragrances, and then I'll do one last visit of my first impressions that are now going to be on me for 2 hours now.
Real quick, just 1 second.
Yes, absolutely.
So I grabbed a few vanillas. Pep left the chat, but I was messaging him on Instagram today about vanillas. So I already talked about Guerlain Louis, which there's a lot going on in Louis, but I always think of that as primarily a spiced vanilla. So that I've already mentioned one for the thing, in my opinion. But so I did a bit of a vanilla quest recently, and I sampled pretty much all of the notable vanillas and a lot of the off the track ones, including some very rare artisanal things that people were kind enough to send me as I was trying to find my way through it and figure out what my ideal vanilla was. And I came away kind of settled on 2, and these 2 are for me. They're not for everybody else, but they're for me because I'm very finicky about what I like in vanilla, and that is
me too.
that is, it can't be super foody, and it has to have more interest than just the vanilla. So so something like Diptyque Eau d'Huile goes like too straightforward vanilla on my skin at a certain point in time. So that doesn't really, like, it's nice for what it is. It doesn't really hold my interest. So I had to find something that had what I like about vanilla, which is a little boozy, rich, but also wasn't going to go in a way that reminded me of food. And so I found 2, and they're of a theme. One of them, I'll start with the more affordable of the 2. I'm a cheerleader for this. People can pick it up for so cheap, and at the price point, it's a steal. And
can I guess it? Oh, you already showed it. I was going to guess that. Le Parfum, Lalique. I love that one. Yes.
This is such a bargain.
Yeah.
It is such a steal. Lalique Le Parfum, gorgeous fragrance. Just like this gorgeous, boozy, non-foody vanilla, but very deep, very rich, with that wonderful medicinal that is just kind of cutting through it, keeping it from getting foody.
Yeah.
Powdery goodness. This stuff is, I think it's the best fragrance Lalique has released of anything that I've sampled in terms of like just overall quality.
Right. No, I would agree. And that's like one of my favorite vanilla-centric fragrances. I don't have too many vanilla-centric fragrances that I like at all, but among them, that is a favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is spectacular. And then, so in a similar vein, and I recommend this for my particular taste in vanilla, but I don't necessarily recommend people just run out and buy this. It's pricey. I'm not sure it's going to be worth the price increase over other options to other people in the same way that it was for me, but I was looking for something that had the particular balance that it offers, which is Celine Black Tie, which is again a boozy, powdery vanilla, but it's done with this lovely orris backbone that isn't so much makeup-y and lipstick. It just adds it a bit of weight and gravitas and keeps it from getting foody. I don't know. It has a great smokiness to it. It's just got like this wonderful like smoky air to it. It wears so well. Eugene likes it. It is. I think this one is really, really, really very nice. And for me, kind of completed my vanilla quest. Once I found that, and I had Lalique Le Parfum, the 2, I was like, okay, those are the 2 that I needed.
So yeah, I haven't bought. I don't have a vanilla. I collect kind of weird. Like each note, I want to only have 3 fragrances that I love in that note, and then once I'm done with the bottle, I'll move on and get another something in there, or sell a bottle and get a 3rd one in there. But it's probably a money management tool, to be honest. But one vanilla that I tried that I love that I will eventually buy is Sultan by Royal Crown. I really like that one. I like the spicy aspect to it and the creaminess. Yeah, so I mean that's the one. First one I'll probably pick up. I'm definitely going to check these out. But I just felt like I was hitting a lot of vanillas that I didn't love. So.
Yeah, vanilla can be a tough one. I mean, I can appreciate vanilla as it appears in so many fragrances that I love, but it's just another one of those notes. Like I have a tough time when it is the star player, and more often than not, it comes off as a little too a little too sweet, a little too gourmand, a little too edible. Like take for example a Guerlain that I am not a fan of, Spiritus Double Vanille. It just basically smells like vanilla extract that you're putting on your skin. Like I'm good. Like it's not something that appeals to me necessarily. But I think vanillas that do interesting things with other notes, but still are ahead of all of the other notes are cool to me. One fragrance that I really like by Rochat is Tocade from the 90s, which is a floral vanilla. And I find that one to be a favorite vanilla as well. It might be too feminine for some taste, but that doesn't mean that you're going to lose your manhood by wearing it for your own enjoyment while sitting at home reading a good book. I think that one is a really great one. I'm actually looking at my little vanilla list that I have on my phone because, once again, recall. Jupe or Yop Laban is another vanilla that I appreciate. Cheap and Cheerful came out, I think, in 1989, 1990. That one's really nice. And of course, Capon Polonum, which is a lavender and vanilla. But there's very few vanillas, like vanilla forward fragrances that I can appreciate. You know what I actually prefer? My preference. Okay, I'm getting tired of that setup. We'll do a different one now. Oh, you guys are too small on that setup. Let's take it back to. No. This is for everyone. I'm trying to choose a good. Okay, let's take it back to that one. I'm just getting used to tooling around with StreamYard here. But for me, benzoin. I prefer benzoin to vanilla. It sort of has the vanillic elements, but it has that certain sort of je ne sais quoi. You know, the leatheriness and resinousness, woodiness, and spiciness that makes it a little bit less gourmand per se when it is featured as the main player. Oh well, thank you. You know, we'll sort that out. I really appreciate the generosity. Enchanté, yes, enchanté, Anuj. Oh, very very dear, a very dear individual, very dear man. And then Margie here. I love Yop. So back to benzoin. This is the one that I'm going to actually be doing an official review of this tomorrow, and this is a Diptyque. Benzoin Bohème.
I've tried that, and that's quite nice. That's quite nice.
It was spendy, but I figured, you know, with the Claquelin glass, gorgeous bottle, and the fact that the sample won me over, I was like, I got it.
Eugene just mentioned, and I do want to say this. He just mentioned Vanille Havane from Les Indomptables, and I do think is very good. Yeah. I would have a bottle if I didn't have Umaguma by Physotic or formerly Basilari, but it is that they're very similar, so I haven't picked up Vanille Havane. But I do think Vanille Havane, it's also a tobacco fragrance, but it has a very nice, like earthy vanilla bean note in a way that I haven't seen most perfumes capture, that has like a very, like if you have a vanilla bean pod, which that is the ideal, like if I can get a perfume one day that actually captures like raw vanilla bean pod to me, like with the soil-y like filthiness of it a little bit.
Right.
That would be supreme, but it's in there a little bit. It's a very sweet fragrance, but that comes through quite clear there.
Yeah, for sure. Where Spiritus Double Vanille is like vanilla extract, I think that Vanille Havane is if you actually took the aromatics of the vanilla bean and distilled it, rather than just having it be this, you know, extract of vanilla. I like that one a lot. Yeah. For sure. And Tonka Imperial is better than Vanilla Spiritus. Pardon my ignorance. I don't know Vanilla Spiritus actually. Don't know that one.
I don't know that either. But I would say in general the prestigious what I've sampled from the Guerlain exclusives, the like vanilla centric ones. What are we talking about? We're talking about like Coeur Beluga, Tonka Imperial.
Angelique Noir was another one, but that I liked because the contrast between the green and the vanilla. I love that when you take a green notes, galbanum, and then there's the vanilla and the dry down, like kind of like Mousse de Cartier or Crazy Cruxia, with the resinous vanilla base, but it starts off very green. I do like things like that.
Eugene, I do not necessarily get tobacco and black tie, but smelling it now, I can see where you're picking that up. I had never thought of this as a tobacco fragrance, though.
Oh, well, of course we'll have. I'm very much interested in having Margie in the future. So Kai, I will be having her lined up in the future. I can assure you of that. I think that should be a wonderful guest. Thank you so much, Ashley Bissett. Appreciate that. Let's see here. And Serge Luton and Bois Vanille. Not a favorite, and I'm a huge Serge Luton fan. It's just too sweet. It's just a little too sweet for me. I have just a difficulty when things are a little too sweet. I think that there always needs to be like a contrast, like sweet and woody, sweet with patchouli, sweet with vetiver, sweet with bitter. It's just sweet, and I grow very weary of it after a while. And then Ryan, thank you for the contribution. Vanilla sprayed in a bathroom. Yeah.
It's sweet. You're right, and that's why I didn't keep it. So I had it, and I didn't keep it. It is very sweet, and I couldn't wear it in a way that I enjoyed. But I appreciated, at the very least, that it was kind of like you took like a young girl's like sweet candy vanilla, and then like had sprayed it in like a bathroom with like slight urinal smell in like the background. I was like, this is kind of like an interesting way to dirty up like what would otherwise be like a very like adolescent like vanilla to me. It was that I'll give Sheldrake credit on that front, that he wasn't just Bath and Body Works sing it.
Right. He had to add a little bit of his signature left field approach to it. Sounds absolutely perverted. No, I don't even pick up on that really. I should revisit my sample. I just thought it was just sort of like a very woody vanilla, and I don't know. I felt like there should be a little bit more going on with it. But once again, anything that's really vanilla forward, I'm kind of a little fastidious when it comes to that. Bois Oriental. Okay, so I haven't sampled that one. Have you guys sampled Bois Oriental? No.
Can there be like? Can we have like a moratorium on fragrances being named Bois something? Like it feels like if I just Googled right now how many perfumes have been named Bois something, it's just gonna be like I don't know. I can't keep up.
And more often than not, it's a letdown because there's not enough Bois. There's not enough woods. Like something gets named Bois, and I'm expecting like, ooh, this is the woods that's sprinkled with other stuff. But then I'm like, where's the woods? How do you say it in French? No bois at all. Something else, but it's not woods. I find that often. Bois Mysterieux, which is not vanillic at all, is one of the two of that particular line by Guerlain that I really appreciate. That one in Encens Mythique. And that's a woody one. I'd say that's a really woody one.
It is. I like that one too. I didn't spend a lot of time with it, but I thought it had a good mysterious air to it.
Some of the other ones are a bit too abrasive and modern interpretations of what they consider to be whatever theme. I didn't take too well to the others, but those two I really liked. That was, to me, sort of a turning point with Guerlain, like a real turning point where it's like, what's going on here? This doesn't feel at all like Almost feels like something else. It's like an imposter. All right. So I think, folks, we're gonna start to wrap this up while the going is good. We have 36 viewers. You're all fantastic. I appreciate all of you. The last thing that I'm going to do here is revisit, since it's been well over 2 hours, the first impressions one more time, starting with the one that I can't remember the name, the Maison Crivelli Osmanth Kodoshan. It's gone.
Wow.
It's somewhere there. Yeah. And it wasn't a transportive experience, so I'm done with that one. Okay. And the one that's been annoying the shit out of me tonight is the Ormond Jane Taif. This thing won't let it just won't let up. It's a very synthetic rose. I'm sorry. Ormond Jane, I know they have a reputation for being, marvelous in their no. Yuck. Yuck to that one. I need to scrub it when I get off of our live stream. And then the Marc Antoine Berrois Ganymede. Hey, I would wear it. I would wear it. I'm not going to buy a bottle of it, but if I were to write a review, it wouldn't be a negative review. So that's the winner for tonight. The winner for tonight, Ganymede. Who would have thought? God. And I was thinking I was going to eviscerate that one. I thought it was going to seriously be like the other two are beautiful, and that one is a hot mess. But that actually ends up being the best of the three. All right. And however, it is a scrubber for some. I'm not saying that I'm totally head over heels for it. It's just the most tolerable of the three. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just not for me. It's nagging on my skin. It could just be my skin. It's just latching on to some sort of a cord in there that I'm not happy with. So. Well, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much, Joshua, for joining me this week. And Ryan, always a pleasure. Hope you can make it again next week. As I'm not going to call you sidekick because that sounds stupid. You're not a sidekick. You're on equal footing with me here. And I'm just very, very happy that you're joining me on these. So I will be announcing who the guest will be next week. I think I'm going to be trying to line up the guests so that, I have sort of people booked. There's a lot of people I want to have join this in the next few weeks. And I will keep you folks posted. And until then, whatever time of the day or night it is, I hope that you enjoy it thoroughly. Thank you so much, everyone. Be well.
Nice meeting you, Ryan.
Nice meeting you, Joshua.
Take care, everyone. Bye. All right. Now, he doesn't realize that there's